In the vast, intricate network of art history, every stroke, every color, and every line tells a story. And yet, until recently, the stories of women artists have been a mere whisper in the grand narrative. From the Renaissance to modern times, female artists have contended with a male-dominated culture that often sidelined, underappreciated, or wrongly attributed their work. And historically, artistic institutions and museum halls were only narrowly opened for women, if at all. In the most famous depictions of women we have, they've often been the subjects of male artists, and they're usually portrayed in ways that objectify or diminish them. There are artists like Johannes Vermeer, John Singer Sargent, and Gustav Klimt, who have created works that capture the complexity, dignity, and beauty of women with sensitivity and respect. But this hasn't been the norm and is not universal to all art created by men. The narrative is slowly shifting as the art world begins to acknowledge the full spectrum of contributions made by women. But the question remains, are we listening? The works of female artists, once relegated to the peripheries, are now understood as essential chapters in the story of art. This is a distinctly different narrative. It's a reflection from within, offering insights into the internal landscapes, societal roles, and personal identities of women. Artemisia Gentileschi's Susanna and the Elders was painted in 1610 during the Baroque period, a style of art that originated in Rome and is known for its dramatic use of light and shadow, intense emotions, and often religious or mythological themes. Painted when she was only 17 years old, this work is a testament to her precocious talent and her unique perspective as a female artist in a male-dominated world. Here we see the biblical story from the Book of Daniel. Our main subject is Susanna, a young married woman who is being harassed by two elders from her community in the sanctity of her garden as she takes a bath. The story goes that the two men are let into Susanna's home to watch her and demand sexual favors. She raises her hands in a defensive posture, while one of the men uses his left hand to make a shushing gesture, telling her to quiet down as they attempt to harass her. She refuses their advances, and in turn they threaten to ruin her reputation by accusing her of adultery, a crime that at the time was punishable by death. The elders carried out their threat and Susanna was arrested. She was about to be put to death when Daniel, a noble Jewish youth of Jerusalem, intervenes by cross-examining the two accusers separately and proves Susanna's innocence by finding inconsistencies in their stories. The narrative arc of this story traditionally closes in Susanna's exoneration, yet Gentileschi's choice to center the artwork on the moment of confrontation is deliberate. She forgoes the vindication to highlight the immediate and personal violation of Susanna's autonomy. Her male contemporaries often use this biblical story as an opportunity to paint female nudes in a sexualizing and objectifying manner. We can see two examples of that here. These artists present Susanna as complicit or even inviting of the elders' gazes. The men are the main characters, and we see the story through their eyes, while Susanna is the object of desire. What we don't see here is Susanna's very real fear. But Gentileschi delves into this dynamic. She goes beyond what is seen into what is truly felt. We see a Susanna who is fully aware of the gravity of her situation. There's a palpable sense of distress. Her body recoils, her expression is one of dread, and she covers up her body with sheets as the only means of protection she has at hand. And in this, we see the vulnerability of a woman cornered by power and desire. The elders of a community are supposed to be the leaders and the protectors, but here they are the predators and they're depicted as such. When looking at this painting, we can all feel the unease and distress, a reaction to the invasive gaze of the elders and what both Susanna and Artemisia feared would happen next. Gentileschi doesn't portray Susanna's body in a way that conforms to conventional beauty standards at the time. She paints natural characteristics, such as the crease near the bottom of her torso, the lines on her neck, the wrinkles near the upper arm, and her natural-looking breasts and abdomen. It seems as if Artemisia used her intimate knowledge of her own body to paint a real woman. In Gentileschi's hands, the canvas becomes a battleground where light and dark, power and vulnerability, the oppressor's gaze and the subject's agency clash in a silent yet eloquent testament to the artist's own life and to the lives of many female-identifying individuals then and now. Elisabeth Louise Vigee was a prominent French painter in the late 18th century. Renowned for her unusually sympathetic portraits of women of high rank, one of which is Marie Antoinette. In fact, only 1/6 of the sitters in her works were male. Breaking through the barriers of her time, Vigée-Lebrun's success was no small feat. Her connection with Antoinette not only elevated her status, but also helped her to be admitted into the Royal Academy, an institution typically closed to those married to art dealers, which she was. Upon her admission, she became one of only 14 women among 550 male artists to achieve full membership into this esteemed institution. Vigée-Lebrun was naturally gifted and largely self-taught, honing her skills through imitation. Her style, while drawing from elements from the Rococo and Neoclassicist movements, cleverly avoids the lightness of Rococo and the rigid idealization of Neoclassicism, choosing instead a path of nuanced naturalism. Here in this self-portrait, Vigée-Lebrun depicts herself in a rose-pink dress and a straw hat, embellished with a feather and wild flowers, while holding her palette and brushes. This pose is inspired by Rubens' Portrait of Susanna, London, a work she encountered in 1782 during a visit to Antwerp. By posing outdoors, she replicates the contrasting light effects in Rubens' portrait, combining ordinary daylight with direct sunlight. The strategic placement of the shadow of her hat over her face creates a striking contrast against the illuminated portions of her body. The textures of her hat are echoed in the texture of her hair, her attire, and the soft clouds in the distance. And in keeping with the naturalism she favored, her hair is also her own as opposed to a wig, as was often expected for formal portraits. Her gaze is direct and self-assured as she holds the instruments of her craft. She is the artist and her muse, an accomplished professional and an elegant woman of the society. Vigée-Lebrun excelled in more intimate formats like the three-quarter and bust-length portraits, where her renderings of expression, light, and fabric are unparalleled. Her innovative approach to portraiture blends approachability with sophistication, offering a humane perspective that countered the era's often rigid and formal artistic standards, and capturing the personality and spirit of her subjects. The Cradle by Berthe Morisot is an important work in the Impressionist movement, depicting a moment of maternal affection. Born into an affluent Parisian family, Morisot's artistic lineage traces back to the Rococo period as the great-niece of Jean-Honoré Fragonard, one of the period's most prolific artists. Under the tutelage of Joseph Guichard and Geoffroy-Alphonse Chocarne, and significantly influenced by plein air advocate Camille Corot, Morisot honed a distinctive style within the Impressionist movement. She married Edward Manet's brother Eugene in 1874, who from all records was shown to support her career wholeheartedly. Their relationship was one of mutual respect and support, an ideal that was uncommon at the time and even now. She was the first woman to join the anonymous society of painters, sculptors, and printmakers, participating in their exhibitions from their inaugural show in 1874 and becoming one of the founding members of the Impressionist movement. Throughout her career, Morisot explored themes of domestic life and femininity with a delicate yet dynamic touch, often focusing on women and children in intimate, candid settings. Her technique, characterized by loose brushwork and a light, vibrant palette, reflected the Impressionists' preoccupation with capturing the effects of light and the fleeting moments of every day. This work is notable for being Morisot's first portrayal of motherhood, a recurring theme in her later art. The subjects of the painting are Morisot's sister, Edma, and her daughter, Blanche. The scene is quiet and simple. A mother watches her child sleeping in a cradle. Through Morisot's eyes, we see the complexity of the love that's in the female gaze, both the artists and the subjects, layering the work with meaning. The painting's composition is centered around subtle diagonal lines. The direction of the mother's eyes and the crib's fabric, further emphasized by Edma's bent left arm mirroring the baby's similarly bent right arm. Edma's expression is ambiguous, caught somewhere between exhaustion and tender contemplation. It's a dynamic yet harmonious connection between a mother and her child, enveloped in an air of protective love. Morisot's technique is a dance of light and brushwork that almost appears to be unfinished, playing with the boundaries of perception. It conveys the introspective quality of her work that sets her apart from her peers. She invites us to question what we see and what we overlook. Through this piece, we are challenged to reconsider not just the role of women in art, but the true value of small everyday moments, forever immortalized on canvas. In the Loge, also known as At the Opera, is an Impressionist painting by the American artist Mary Cassatt from 1878. This piece showcases Cassatt's distinctive approach to depicting modern life, particularly the lives of women. When it debuted in Boston that same year, the painting was heralded as striking. Finding the artistic teachings in the United States lacking, Cassatt traveled to Europe after the Civil War to seek a more fulfilling artistic education. She studied in Italy and France, eventually settling in Paris and making it her home. Despite the pride her American peers took in their French academic training, Cassatt quickly grew tired with the conservative approach taught in those academies and perpetuated by the exhibitions they organized. She believed that art should mirror the complexities of the modern world and adapt with it. She was drawn to the experimental techniques of the Impressionists, an art movement characterized by small, visible brushstrokes that offer the bare impression of form, unblended color, and an emphasis on the accurate depiction of natural light. Edgar Degas' invitation to Cassatt in 1877 to exhibit with the Impressionists marked a significant turn in her career, making her one of the few women and the sole American to join the French Impressionists. She painted women almost exclusively, reflecting her personal narrative and her insights into the female condition. At the time, femininity was largely equated with domesticity, but the leap of women into public spaces, such as the opera, marked a critical shift in societal norms. In the Loge captures this transition. Cassatt paints a woman dressed in black in the social and cultural hub of the opera house, a setting that symbolized one of the few public venues open to women. The opera was both a place to be entertained and to perform one's social standing. Her elbow rests against the railing as she holds up her opera glasses. Our subject's confident body language and alert expression suggest power and curiosity which defied the period's gender expectations. In the background, we see a man looking at our subject, a subtle critique of the societal act of watching and being watched, particularly as it pertains to women in public spaces. Yet she does not let his gaze interrupt her. She asserts her independence in this space. Cassatt chose to not paint the performance. Her focus is instead on the audience, revealing the social dramas playing out among the spectators, and we too are observing the observers. In her oeuvre, Cassatt presents the female experience not as a peripheral subject, but as central to the understanding of modernity. Her choice to paint a woman in the act of observing, rather than being observed, inverts the traditional power dynamics associated with the male gaze. The Two Fridas, painted by Frida Kahlo, is a study of self-representation and emotional expression. It was painted in 1939, amidst the turmoil of her divorce from Diego Rivera, a fellow Mexican painter and muralist. She uses the canvas to delve into the depths of her identity and the duality of her cultural heritage. This large-scale painting depicts two versions of Kahlo sitting side by side on a bench, holding hands against a cloud-filled sky that is equally telling of her internal state. Both figures are wearing clothes that speak to her dual heritage, one in the traditional Tehuana dress of the indigenous women from Tehuantepec, symbolizing her Mexican roots, and the other in a European-styled white dress indicative of her European ancestry from her father's side. Their hearts, exposed and vulnerable, connect through a network of blood vessels that bind them together, yet also highlight their different experiences. The Frida on the right holds a portrait of Diego Rivera in her left hand, her gaze imbued with a complexity of emotions. The one on the left, her heart severed, cuts her blood vessel with surgical pincers in a chilling act of self-inflicted surgery. Kahlo's lifelong health struggles, including polio and a severe bus accident that led to numerous health complications, deeply influenced her work. She used her art to explore themes of pain, suffering, and personal identity, often incorporating anatomical symbols and surreal imagery. Here, the surgical pincers and the spilled blood are not only macabre details, but draw us further into a visceral understanding of her pain. The interconnected hearts and the vein that both joins and separates them underscores the inextricable link between the two Fridas, despite their outward differences. This visual juxtaposition is not merely about cultural identity, but also Kahlo's internal struggle and her quest for self-understanding in the face of personal and physical adversity. It's a powerful act of self-representation and reliance. She presents herself not as an object of beauty or desire, but as a complex person with a rich inner world. The duality of being a wife and partner, yet solitary. Mexican and of European descent. In love, yet familiar with suffering. In pain, yet on her way to healing. It lays bare the strength of womanhood, looking beyond the surface to the profound depths of human experience. Now let's look at an untitled self-portrait from 1918 by Shima Seien, an artist from Japan's Taisho and Showa periods. She was a self-taught Nihonga painter, a traditional Japanese painting style that uses mineral pigments and ink on silk or paper and translates to pictures of Japan. She was born in 1892 during the Meiji period, a time of great cultural and societal transformation in Japan. This era marked Japan's rapid westernization and a departure from being an isolated feudal society. It introduced a complex backdrop for artists, especially women, who sought to find their voice in this new world. In her work, she didn't depict women through the traditional bijinga genre that showed idealized versions of women. No, she presents a raw and unvarnished look at the female experience. Our subject is seated, suggesting a moment of stillness, yet there's a vulnerability in her posture and expression that invites the viewers into her personal space. Behind her, rather than a detailed backdrop, there's an unfinished painting, perhaps an extension of the artist's ongoing journey, her unrealized ambitions, and the unresolved societal issues regarding women's rights and voices. The bareness of the background constantly redirects our focus back to our subject. What is she thinking about? Why is she looking at us? And what is expected of us? Her face, the focal point of the self-portrait, holds a bruised mark around her right eye, a stark and unsettling visual statement. It is rendered in hues that contrast, yet are balanced with her skin. It's not only a physical representation of injury, but a symbol, perhaps of the unseen wounds carried by women, the emotional and psychological toll of living in a patriarchal society. Through this piece, Seien touches on the universal struggle for autonomy known so well by women and marginalized communities. What's intriguing about Seien's work is not just the content, but the context. This was a time when Japan was oscillating between the traditional and the modern, grappling with its identity in the face of Western influence. For a woman to assert herself in the art world in such a confrontational manner was revolutionary. Here she challenges not only the aesthetic norms of her time, but also the societal norms that sought to confine women to the private sphere, silent and unseen. Seien's narrative is also a story of what could have been. Despite her early recognition and the groundbreaking nature of her work, her artistic career was cut short by marriage, a common story for women of her time. The shift from a promising artist to a life confined to domesticity underscores a broader cultural tragedy, the loss of potential and voice due to societal constraints on women's roles and opportunities. Her work, particularly the 1918 self-portrait, is a powerful testament against gender-based violence and a call for recognition of women's autonomy and expression in art and society. Tamara de Lempicka's self-portrait in a green Bugatti is a key piece of Art Deco, illustrating the style's fascination with modernity, luxury, stylized forms, and the new paradigms of femininity. Lempicka, an artist of Polish and Russian descent, forged her distinct style in an era where the role of women was rapidly evolving. Like many other Eastern European artists, she left her home in Russia during the 1917 revolution and found herself in Paris. Despite a strained marriage, financial difficulties, and a pregnancy that her husband disdainfully questioned, she pursued her artistic career with determination. She attended free art courses while both managing her family's responsibilities and maintaining a public appearance of impeccable control and elegance. This resilience and self-empowerment are reflected in her art. It was commissioned by Die Dame, the first illustrated magazine in Germany to cater to the interests of modern women, and it was a bold statement on women's liberation during the period between the two world wars. Lempicka's technique is elegant and precise. She uses tubular and crystalline forms to showcase this precision and echoes the geometric aesthetics of Cubism, Futurism, and Bauhaus. Painted in 1929, this artwork features the artist herself as a protagonist, situated behind the wheels of a luxurious green Bugatti. She is at the forefront, not only as the subject, but as the driving force, a reflection of her real-life stature as a pioneering woman of the Roaring Twenties. Far from being a simple self-representation, this piece is a narrative of self-confidence, a declaration of Lempicka's liberated spirit amidst a controversial personal life, which was as much a part of her fame as her artistic talent. We see her behind the wheel with short hair, a statuesque profile, and red lips. Her confident gaze positions her as a femme fatale, embodying both beauty and danger. She is the definition of cold beauty, independence, wealth, and unattainability. She makes the choice to paint a green Bugatti despite her personal car being a yellow Renault, signifying her preference for beauty and elite status. Yet it also illustrates the artist's acute awareness of her public persona. Her fashionable attire, the helmet, leather gloves, and the gray scarf add to the portrayal of a woman who is both of her time and ahead of it. She is the image of liberated femininity. Amrita Sher-Gil's Three Girls is a painting from 1935 that beautifully captures the essence of Indian womanhood. This piece is a fascinating entry point into Sher-Gil's exploration of identity and belonging, themes that permeate her work and life. Born to a Hungarian mother and an Indian father, Sher-Gil's multi-ethnic background provided her with a cross-cultural perspective that she masterfully translated onto the canvas. She painted this piece shortly after returning to India from Europe, and we can see how this move was reflected in her oeuvre. She transitions from European subjects to the lives and experiences of Indian women. This was a time when India was grappling with its colonial past and the push for independence was gaining momentum. In this context, Sher-Gil's focus on Indian subjects and themes can be seen as part of a larger movement towards asserting a distinct Indian identity in art. Here we see our subjects, the Kaur sisters, who are Amrita's uncle's granddaughters, in traditional attire. The composition is simple yet powerful, with the figures closely grouped together, occupying the foreground of the painting against a backdrop of undefined space. The positioning of the figures conveys a sense of solidarity or shared experience among the women. The color palette is subdued yet vibrant, dominated by reds, ochres, and greens, enhancing the painting's emotional depth. The warmth of the earthly colors suggests a setting that is intimate and familiar, possibly indoors. There's an emotional intensity here, offering a window into the inner worlds of her subjects. She has captured the nuanced expressions of the sisters, conveyed through their postures and the imagined lines of their faces. They are in thought, quietly contemplating, but by no means passive agents in their lives. Sher-Gil has empathy and respect for the marginalized in society, and through that, she is able to capture the nuanced energy and dignity of her subjects. The portrayal of the Kaur sisters in this piece is a direct reflection of Sher-Gil's own feelings of alienation and her exploration of identity. By intertwining traditional and modernist artistic techniques, she provides a layered commentary on the societal expectations placed on women. Next, let's look at Alice Neel's self-portrait from 1980. She painted this piece when she was 80 years old, and it took her 5 years to complete, perhaps due to the artistic process or maybe the emotional and physical challenges of such a direct self-examination. Neel was born in Pennsylvania, but spent much of her life in New York, where she saw movements from abstract expressionism to conceptual art, yet refused to follow any of them. Instead, she developed a unique expressive style of portrait painting that captured the psychology of friends and neighbors living in New York. This choice isolated her from mainstream art circles until the recognition that came belatedly in her 70s.
When painting or writing are good, it's taken right out of life itself, to my mind, and put into the work. Now, that doesn't mean that the work has to tell about real life. I mean, it can be abstract or anything. But the vitality is taken out of real living and put into the creative project, whatever it is.
Her portraits are often straightforward and unflinching, presenting her subjects with all their imperfections and complexities. She says, "As for people who want flattering paintings of themselves, even if I wanted to do them, I wouldn't know what flattery is. I paint to try to reveal the struggle, tragedy, and joy of life." This self-portrait is executed in Neel's signature style, loose brushstrokes that lend vibrancy and immediacy to her subjects. Her choice of subject here strays from the traditional aesthetics of female beauty and the glorification of youth that has historically dominated the art world. She sits nude in a striped chair, holding a paintbrush in one hand and a white rag in the other. She declares herself as an artist, not just through the tools, but through her relentless pursuit of her craft, no matter how difficult. Her color palette consists of lighter shades, the pinks and reds of her flesh, most prominent in her cheeks, painted with both accuracy and expressiveness, contrasting sharply with the subdued, cooler tones of the background and the chair. This interplay of color not only highlights the central figure, but also communicates the warmth of life coursing through the aged body, juxtaposed against the impersonal and unyielding passage of time. Her choice to sit nude, adorned only with eyeglasses, in a regal yet vulnerable pose, speaks volumes. Her nudity is portrayed not for sensuality, but for authenticity. It's a statement on the reality of aging, a subject often relegated to the margins of our society. The glasses suggest a clarity of vision, both literal and metaphorical in the wisdom she's gained through years of lived experiences. Her open gaze initiates a dialogue with the viewer, marking the start of a profound conversation. We're confronted with the dignity and self-awareness of her advanced age. In a society that often values youth and beauty, this self-portrait proudly showcases the inherent beauty and honor in aging. By placing herself in the context of a genre that often overlooked individuals like her, Neel reclaims both the narrative and the medium. Faith Ringgold's Woman on a Bridge series embodies a profound commentary on gender, race, and liberation through the medium of story quilts. Born in 1930, Ringgold's multifaceted career has been defined by her relentless pursuit of using art as a vehicle for social change, especially during the civil rights movement.
Many of us would commit our art to the experience of being Black in America. Then the issue came, well, why are you doing that? You had to justify your existence, your culture.
Her innovative integration of quilting into her artwork, a medium traditionally associated with women's communal labor and African cultural heritage, allowed her to explore narratives of freedom, equality, and imagination in a deeply personal yet universally accessible way. The series comprises of 5 quilts that depict women over iconic bridges in New York and San Francisco, including the George Washington Bridge, the Golden Gate, and Brooklyn Bridge. She places her subjects at the forefront of the narratives, not only celebrating their liberation and agency, but also critiquing the societal and institutional barriers that seek to limit them. She says, "My women are actually flying. They are just free, totally. They take their liberation by confronting this huge masculine icon, the bridge." Her choice to depict bridges as a recurring motif reflects her personal connection to the structure. For much of her life, Ringgold lived within sight of the George Washington Bridge, and to her it embodied a muscular egoism and ambition that the artist embraced as her own and wanted for all women. The Woman on a Bridge series showcases Ringgold's masterful blend of painting, quilting, and storytelling, particularly through pieces like Tar Beach. The subject in this piece is Cassie Louise Lightfoot flying over the George Washington Bridge on a hot summer day in Harlem. On the roof, or Tar Beach, we can see her family and neighbors enjoying the summer night, playing cards and staring at the sky, inspired by Ringgold's own childhood in Harlem. In the text, Cassie explains, "Only 8 years old, and in the 3rd grade, and I can fly. That means I am free to go wherever I want for the rest of my life." Cassie's dream encapsulates the essence of this series, a whimsical yet powerful assertion of freedom and self-determination. It's a celebration of the artist's creativity and a call to freedom that resonates as much today as it did then. She reclaims the medium and elevates women's stories and creation into the realm of high art. Her work pushes us to reconsider the value of traditional women's work and its place in the narrative of art history. Jenny Saville's 1992 artwork, Propped, presents a raw and unfiltered representation of the human body. Throughout history, the depiction of the female body in art has predominantly been an exercise in objectification, with women being portrayed primarily for the visual consumption of male artists and their audiences. This dynamic places the male artist in a position of power, orchestrating the scene and dictating the narrative. In this traditional setting, the male viewer does not encounter the woman before him as a person, but rather as an idealized construct of femininity crafted by another man. At 7 feet tall and 6 feet wide, this piece is an intense and confrontational self-portrait that delves deep into themes of body, identity, and gaze. It's different from the traditional representations of female form in art. We see Saville seated naked on a stool, or perhaps a pedestal. Her body is painted in a way that feels tangible, with thick, vigorous brushstrokes that give a sense of texture. The granularity in the skin and the play of light and shadow gives the body its form and volume. The colors of the painting are not just skin tones, but a spectrum of hues. Pinks, reds, yellows, and even blues and greens that when combined depict the living, breathing quality of the flesh, suggesting both the softness and the strength of the physical body. Her body is angled in such a way that it commands the entire space of the canvas. The perspective here is intentionally distorted and exaggerated to confront us, drawing attention to the way bodies, especially women's, are perceived and shown in art and society. Her torso leans forward slightly, and her hands grip her thighs. The arms frame and accentuate her breasts, which are pressed together and upward, introducing a new portrayal of female nudity, not as objects of passive beauty. No, it's assertive, almost defiant. And the most striking part of this piece is Saville's gaze near the top of the canvas. Unlike traditional nudes that avert their eyes, offering themselves to the viewer's gaze without returning it, Saville's eyes lock directly onto ours. This painting stands out as one of only 2 works from this period where Saville integrates text into her composition. Here, she has featured a thought-provoking quote from French feminist and philosopher Louise saying, "If we continue to speak in this sameness, speak as men have spoken for centuries, we will fail each other. Again, words will pass through our bodies, above our heads, disappear, make us disappear." When this piece was first unveiled at Saville's graduation exhibition in Edinburgh in May 1992, it was displayed opposite a mirror, equal in height, inviting viewers to reflect on their role within the narrative of the piece. It made history when it sold for £9.5 million, about $12.4 million, at a Sotheby's auction in 2018. Setting a record for the highest price ever paid for a work by a living female artist at the time. This sale, significantly exceeding its low estimate, should have marked a historic celebration of Saville's contributions to the art world and the re-evaluation of female artists' role within it. Unfortunately, it was quickly overshadowed by a piece by Banksy, priced at $1.4 million, when it was self-destructed immediately after being sold, captivating global media and public attention. This stunt swiftly diverted the conversation from a significant milestone for female artists and the broader implications of diversity and representation in art, focusing instead on the spectacle. Despite its empowering potential, the artwork also conveys a palpable sense of self-critique, with Saville's figure depicted in a struggle against the oppressive beauty standards enforced by society. The progress of women in arts has been a journey marked by struggle, resilience, and extraordinary talent. From Artemisia Gentileschi's raw depiction of Susanna's plight to Alice Neel and Shima Seien's raw self-portraits, these artists have defied traditional constraints to portray women's realities with unflinching honesty. Their art not only reflects individual experiences, but also serves as a collective testament to the evolving role of women throughout history. The artworks we looked at today do not merely fill gaps in art history. They demand a reconfiguration of its framework, ensuring that the power, diversity, and depth of women's voices are integral to the story of art.